Welcome to News Hour by DLC, your one-stop destination for the latest and most impactful updates from the legal world. From landmark rulings to policy shifts shaping the justice system, DLC brings you in-depth coverage, expert insights, and analysis that matter. Stay informed, stay ahead because in law, every verdict counts. Today is 17th February 2025 and we bring you news that matters. The first news for today is as follows. The Supreme Court of India observed that in cases of wrongful dismissal, awarding lump sum compensation may be more appropriate than reinstatement with back wages. The court emphasized that compensation decisions should balance the interests of both employee and employer, considering factors like post-termination employment. The ruling highlights that back wages aren't automatic and depend on proof of unemployment or underemployment after dismissal. Next news. The Supreme Court of India issued a contempt notice to authorities for allegedly violating a prior order prohibiting demolitions without notice and a hearing. This follows the partial demolition of Madni Masjid in Kushinagar. The court stayed further demolition and demanded an explanation within 2 weeks. Petitioners argued the structure was on private land with valid municipal sanctions. Next news. The Supreme Court of India stayed the adverse observations made by the Punjab and Haryana High Court against Haryana's additional Advocate General, Deepak Sabharwal. The remarks were linked to a bail case involving an under-trial prisoner's death. The High Court had criticized the counsel for allegedly misleading the court about the prisoner's medical condition and bail status. The Supreme Court's interim order halts these observations until further notice. Next news. The Supreme Court of India raised concerns about the high cost of litigation, stating that exorbitant legal fees hinder access to justice, particularly for economically weaker sections. The court emphasized the need for the legal profession to prioritize service over commercialization. It called for affordable legal assistance and praised a young lawyer for providing free legal aid to a senior citizen. Next news. The Supreme Court of India ruled that filing a fresh bail application after the rejection of an earlier plea or the cancellation of bail is a matter of right. It held that a high court cannot dismiss a new bail plea solely because the Supreme Court did not explicitly allow its filing. The judgment emphasized that applicants retain the right to seek bail again if circumstances justify it. Next news. The Supreme Court of India upheld the government's authority to withdraw promised rebates in the larger public interest. It ruled that the doctrine of promissory estoppel cannot be strictly applied when continuing incentives would burden public finances. The judgment supported the government's decision to recover electricity tariff rebates from industrial units, emphasizing that public interest outweighs private benefits. Next news. The Supreme Court of India ruled that if an accused remains in jail as an under trial for 6-7 years before receiving a final verdict, it violates their constitutional right to a speedy trial under Article 21. The court emphasized that prolonged incarceration without a verdict leads to social stigma, financial loss, and emotional stress. It granted bail to an accused under UAPA, criticizing delays in examining witnesses and urging efficient case management. Next news. The Bombay High Court granted bail to a murder accused who had been under trial for over 9 years, emphasizing that prolonged incarceration can severely affect mental health and led to issues like depression, anxiety, and even drug abuse. The court highlighted the damaging impact of long term imprisonment on social relationships and overall well being, particularly given poor prison conditions. Next news. The Allahabad High Court Bar Association filed an affidavit alleging police atrocities against lawyers in Prayagraj, presenting evidence, including a pen drive. The court ordered state authorities to respond and scheduled the next hearing for February 18. The issue arose from an incident where police allegedly assaulted lawyers who were blocked from accessing the High Court due to VIP movement. Next news. Supreme Court overturns UD's ban on Islamic schools. In a significant ruling, the Supreme Court of India has overturned the Allahabad High Court's decision that banned Islamic schools, madrasas, in UD. The earlier judgment had declared the 2004 law governing madrasas inconsistent with the constitutional principle of secularism, directing students to shift to conventional schools. This recent Supreme Court decision allows approximately 25,000 madrasas to continue operations, affecting 2.7 million students and 10,000 teachers. Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud affirmed that the act aligns with states' obligation to ensure proper education for children. This ruling brings relief amid accusations that members of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) have been promoting anti-Islamic sentiments. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the BJP maintain they work towards the development and welfare of all communities in India. Next news. Supreme Court criticizes demolition or illegal properties. The Supreme Court has criticized state authorities for demolishing properties or alleged criminals, a practice often termed bulldozer justice. Critics argue this approach disproportionately targets the Muslim minority and bypasses due process. In response to multiple petitions following demolitions in states governed by the BJP, the court issued guidelines to prevent arbitrary actions. These include issuing prior notifications and recording demolition process. The BJP has not yet responded to the ruling. Next news. Supreme Court orders striking doctors to resume work. India's Supreme Court has mandated that doctors on strike return to work by 5 p.m. Tuesday or face punitive measures. The strike began after a trainee doctor was raped and murdered on the 9th of August in Kolkata, leading to widespread protests. The West Bengal Junior Doctors Front demands justice for the victim and systemic changes. Despite the court's order on reported patient deaths due to the strike, protesting doctors are hesitant to return, emphasizing the need for justice over immediate resumption of duties. Next news. Supreme Court launches landmark judgment summaries web page. The Supreme Court of India has introduced a new web page titled Landmark Judgment Summaries on its official website. This initiative aims to make significant court decisions more accessible to the public by providing clear and concise summaries. The page offers a curated list of important judgments, each accompanied by a brief description, and includes links to full judgments, video recordings of hearings, and oral transcripts when available. This effort underscores the court's commitment to promoting legal awareness and public engagement. Next news. Supreme Court expresses concern over Allahabad High Court's functioning. The Supreme Court has expressed concern regarding the functioning of the Allahabad High Court, particularly in case listings. The observation came during a hearing of MLA Abbas Ansari's plea, where delays in hearing his property dispute case were highlighted. Justice Suryakant remarked on the worrisome state of affairs in some high courts, emphasizing the need for timely case management. Next news: Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal released on bail. Delhi's Chief Minister and prominent opposition leader, Arvind Kejriwal, has been granted bail by the Supreme Court after nearly 6 months in jail over corruption charges. Kejriwal's arrest, which he claims was politically motivated, occurred shortly before national elections. The court ruled that his seconded imprisonment was an unjust deprivation of liberty, as his trial would not conclude soon. Despite bail conditions limiting his official duties, Kejriwal intends to continue his political activities and leadership. Next news: the Kerala High Court clarified that in ex parte proceedings, a court should not automatically rule in favor of the party present. The party must establish their case with prima facie proof, even in the absence of the opposing party. The court criticized a rent control court's eviction order, as it didn't adhere to the necessary legal procedures under the Kerala Buildings, Lease and Rent Control rules. Consequently, the eviction order was set aside. Next news: the Gujarat High Court has dismissed journalist Mahesh Langa's plea to quash an FIR accusing him of theft, criminal conspiracy, and corruption related to confidential government documents. Langa's defense argued that the FIR was based on conjecture, as there was no clear identification of the accused parties or evidence of wrongdoing. The court upheld the FIR, with the investigation still in the early stages. Next news: the Madras High Court refused to quash a cheating case filed by Garuda Aerospace against drone company Ideaforge. The court found sufficient evidence to proceed with the case, stating the grounds raised by Ideaforge were defenses to be considered during trial. The case stems from allegations that Ideaforge disabled drones purchased by Garuda, impacting the company's project with the Haryana government. Next news: the Kerala High Court ruled that an Internal Complaints Committee (ICC) cannot proceed with a complaint unless it contains allegations of sexual harassment as defined under the POSH Act. The court found the complaint lacked such allegations, focusing instead on verbal abuse and video recording. The ICC's notice was quashed as the jurisdictional requirement for taking cognizance was not met. The complainant, not an employee of the branch, had made the allegations in a political context rather than under the POSH Act. Next news: the Kerala High Court expressed reluctance to grant anticipatory bail to former MLA PC George, accused of making hate speech against the Muslim community. The court noted that George had repeatedly violated its previous orders to refrain from provocative statements. Despite his counsel's argument that comments were made in the heat or the moment and had been apologized for, the court emphasized the pattern of disregard for judicial directions. The case is scheduled for further considerations. And the final news for today is as follows. The Madras High Court directed that trial courts cannot deny video conferencing facilities to lawyers and litigants. As per the rules set by the High Court. The bench was hearing a case where concerns were raised regarding the denial of this facility at a special court. The court emphasized that existing video conferencing infrastructure should be utilized for legal proceedings. Additionally, the court addressed the rights of prisoners to basic facilities and education, ensuring proper treatment in line with international standards. Thanks for listening and consider subscribing to the channel. Well, that's all for today. Keep listening to Legal News by DLC.